Okay, so welcome to the R portion of our video. What we will be doing is MANOVA. So just a little quick refresher of, well, yeah, while this is popping up. So essentially what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking to see if black women's facial expressions have an effect on perception of their credibility, approachability, and trustworthiness. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're actually going to load up the library with these different packages, and each package provides you with its own function. So in essence, whatever package that you have, you can execute a certain function. That's all it is. Nothing special. Well, it kind of is if you're running an analysis, but if you run it over like 50 million times, I guess it wouldn't be special anymore. But nonetheless, we're going to run that, and then we're also going to run our read Excel. And with this read Excel, it actually imports a function for us to pull our MANOVA data set into R. So this is the function I was mentioning just now. And what we're doing, we're creating a variable called MANOVA remix based on the coding that we've for our input of our data. So we're going to run that, and then we're also going to view it. That's what that command does. So what has come up is our MANOVA remix data set. I called it remix because there was an original data set and it sucked. So this is the remix. The remix is always better than the original. Well, depending on the song. But anyway, this is beside the point. So, So we have facial expressions. So 1 is representing blank, 2 is representing happy, and 3 is representing mad. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to attach our data set. So this tells R to recognize it and treat it, and well, not even treat it, let it know this is what we're working with today. Woohoo! So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to set our facial expression variable to a factor. So what this means, we're telling R to treat it as if it's numerical. Here we go. So for me, our professor has required us to conduct a correlations test between two variables. So I have 3. So I'm going to run a correlations test between approachability and trustworthiness. Yes. And then I'm also going to run a correlation between approachability and credibility. So in essence, we're going to be looking to see if the correlations between our dependent variables have an impact on the power of MANOVA. I mean, they do. That's one of the considerations that I mentioned when you're trying to do MANOVA that you want to take into account. In the earlier video, I mentioned the intercorrelations between between your dependent variables or outcome variables have an impact on the power of MANOVA. So that's one thing that you want to think about. So with this, we're gonna check later on in the video. We're going to check to see how how MANOVA's power is impacted by these correlations. So that's going to be kind of cool. Anyways, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to conduct a correlations test. So we're going to use the Pearson correlation to test the correlations between trustworthiness and approachability. So we have a correlation of 0.70. So this suggests that approachability and trustworthiness are moderately to strongly correlated to one another. And positively at that, So that means as one score of outcome variable goes up, the other one goes up as well. So trustworthiness goes up, approachability goes up, and vice versa. So the next correlation test that we're going to do, we're going to run it between approachability and credibility. We're also using the Pearson correlations for this test, and we're going to run it. So what we see here, we see that there is a extremely small correlation between, what did we do? Approachability and credibility. Now, my instructor has required us to have a correlation between -0.2 to +0.2. So with those two, with that range, essentially they're suggesting that you want these two variables to be little correlated to one another, or no correlation, little to no correlation, or negative correlation. So with that, we see that there is little to no correlation between approachability and credibility. So just to explore this a little bit more, we're going to be doing a scatter plot. And a scatter plot is a great way of seeing your correlations between your data. So the first scatter plot that we're going to do it for credibility and approachability. I don't know why that particular order, I just wanted to do it that way. So that command creates the bones for the scatter plot, looking at credibility and approachability. And this command actually fleshes it out. And what comes up here, if it comes up soon, it hurt me. So here we have our scatter plot between our different facial expressions in regards to credibility and approachability. So just looking at it, you can kind of see it's kind of funky. And when I mean funky, you just no. So in essence, what you're seeing a very small or no correlate, and even negative correlations at that, between credibility and approachability. So here you can kind of see like it's trying to do something, and it low-key is, but then again it's not. This one is definitely doing something here. So it's showing that we have a negative relationship, and same thing this way. But regardless, this is funky. This is like a no-no. But anyways, the only reason why I'm saying it's funky is because it's not aesthetically pleasing to me. So I'm not saying it's funky because of what the scatter plot looks like. Well, actually, that's exactly why I'm saying it. But as far as the little to no correlations go, we see that there is little to no correlation, or even a negative correlation between credibility and approachability, depending upon your different facial groups, or facial expression groups. So in essence, it takes a snapshot of the correlation coefficient that we had for our Pearson's correlations test. So now, just to test, not to test, but to show the other one, so that is the trustworthiness and approachability scatter plot, or correlation test that we did. So we're going to use this command to create the bones for our scatter plot, and then this command executes it. So what's going to pop up here is essentially another scatter plot, but this scatter plot looks at approachability and trustworthiness. So from the Pearson correlations test, we see that there was a moderate to strong positive correlation between approachability and trustworthiness. And we can see that here for each facial expression group. So for blank, we see a positive correlation. So as trustworthiness goes up, so does approachability. Same thing with happy facial expression group and mad facial expression group. So in essence, what this suggests that approachability and trustworthiness are positively correlated with one another, and strongly correlated at that. So knowing what we know now about our correlations, now we have to take some important considerations into our test, into our MANOVA analysis, and looking at the power of our MANOVA. I can't remember if I just said ANOVA, but anytime you hear me reference ANOVA, I am meaning to say MANOVA. So fair warning. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning. Oh well. Anyways, I digress. No, there we go. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're actually going to create an error bar chart, just to show what our data as a whole looks like. So how we're going to do this, we're going to use the melt function to do this. So this command, well, both of these commands allow us to melt and name the things that we want to look at in our data. Well, for our data. Right. So this next command here, well, let me quickly explain these two. So essentially you want to use the melt function so you can essentially collapse, and I'm using this word, it's not the right word, but this is the word that I can actually describe it. You want to collapse your data into in a certain format to capture it the way that we want to for this bar plot. There we go. So this command creates the bones for the bar plot. This next one actually creates the, fleshes it out. Here we go. So what we have here is our error bar chart. So we have facial expressions on the x-axis, and then we have our trustworthiness, our approachability, and credibility. So our outcome variables and our predictor variables. So essentially what you're seeing the distribution of scores for each group. And I have to say, trustworthiness varies dependent upon the facial expressions, as does approachability and credibility. So in essence, all of our outcome measures vary depending upon the facial expressions. So with this we see a very quick snapshot of what our data looks like and what we can essentially anticipate. So we can anticipate some differences. I'm not saying this is a confirmation that we see differences. We can, in all honesty, we can get excited at this point. So another way to look at the distribution of scores is actually to create a box plot. So this command creates the bones for the box plot, and this command actually fleshes it out. So what's going to pop up here, obviously, a box plot. If it decides to pop up. It's taking a long time here. Man, this is kind of awkward. Oh, really? I was wondering why I wasn't doing it. Okay, there we go. Whew, that was a lot of awkward silence there. Anyways, so here we see our distribution of scores. We can obviously see there are some, there's a variety of distributions amongst our outcome measures for each facial expression. So like I said before, we can anticipate some differences for this particular analyses. So in the next video, we're going to go a little bit further, but we're going to look at some descriptive statistics and then hopefully some assumptions.